Welcome to In the News for October the 8th, 2021. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
This is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Good morning, Brett.
Good morning, Jeff. The past week, we had two 10-year anniversaries.
That's true.
One was a little happy, and the other was a little bittersweet. I thought you did a great job of addressing both of them. Let's do the happy first, can we? Happy birthday to Siri. She turned 10 years old.
10 years
I love
old.
this. I saw this around. You could actually say, I don't want to say her name, but you could wish her happy birthday, right? And you linked to a fun story here where she would have like a conversation to you about how old she is and all kinds of stuff. It's great.
Yeah, everybody in my family was telling Siri happy birthday to my my HomePod Mini. So all of the responses and stuff. Yeah, it is amazing that Siri's been around for 10 years. You know, it started with the iPhone 4S. And,
yes.
I think about it, the fact, my kids are 15 and 13. And, the earliest memories that I personally have is when I'm about 5 years old. And I suspect that's true for a lot of people. So like for both of my kids, like they don't know a world in which we don't have this talking assistant that just does whatever you want. It's amazing that, and Siri, I use, I'm sure many people do use it every day.
Yeah.
I'm laughing as I look at, for those people who are listening to the audio, you should look at the video because Brett's got some pictures of Siri's over his shoulders. Over your right shoulder, You have the original Siri. And then over your left shoulder, you have the current version. But that original one that's over your right shoulder that you put a birthday hat on. I remember that when my kids were little and they still went trick-or-treating, I'm such a geek. I actually dressed up as Siri one year. I took that picture that's over your shoulder. I wore a black shirt and I cut it out and I just put that on me. And I walked around and I was Siri. And so people would ask me questions. But
we might need some photographic evidence of that, Jeff.
Yeah, we're not going to pull those out. I do have them, but we will not be putting that in the show notes. But Siri is obviously great. And there are other things like it, Amazon has Alexa and others as well. But, being able to just talk and get responses, it's such a nice way to, to communicate. I mean, just this morning, Brad, I was sending you a text message. I was in my car using CarPlay, just using Siri, just talking back and forth to you. And it was just natural. So
I love this. And the 9 to 5 Mac story that you linked to, it's the original commercial of the iPhone 4S that you mentioned. And it's just so weird to kind of look back and see. I remember some of these commercials and how fantastic they were when they first came out. And now they just look so antiquated from what we remember. But you're so right. Just real quick. I love it. My kids are almost the same ages as yours. And yesterday, my wife and I were talking about how when she and I were in law school, we were communicating like via text message on our laptops, right? And my daughter was like, well, why don't couldn't you just call mom or so? And I'm like, no, we did not have cell phones. We did. And my daughter's just kind of like, I cannot fathom that. How would you not have your own phone? And it's just so weird to kind of think back, for us that are of the more mature ages, like we remember those days, but just like you said, your kids, like they're not going to know a world without having a personal cell phone that they literally have with them all the time or a Siri assistant. And just quickly, go ahead.
Oh, I'll go first. There's a famous scene from, I've always been more of a Star Wars person than a Star Trek person, but there's a famous scene from a Star Trek back in one of the movies in the 80s where they go back in time and they walk up to one of the original Macintoshes that has a little mouse off the side. And one of the characters in the movie picks up the mouse and starts talking to it and says, "Hello, computer." And the idea being that far into the future, people know, the only way you would communicate with the computer is by talking to it. How else would you have an interface? And so it's funny as we move more towards that day.
The last thing quickly, I'll just say, we talk about you were using Siri in CarPlay. We've always been able to use Siri on the phone. But I got to tell you, I find myself using it a little bit more on the Apple Watch even. Sometimes it's okay, but it's like literally I will pull it up to my mouth because I find it just works a little bit easy. But, to set a timer or to remind myself about something, like even if I don't have my phone literally on me or, it's in a different room, I'm just thinking about over these last 10 years. I mean, Siri has been the brunt of many jokes and probably deservedly so in some aspects. But it is amazing to see how that ecosystem has kind of grown and expanded, even to the point, quickly, Jeff, we haven't talked a whole lot about this and we don't have to go into too much detail, but in iOS 15, right? Some of that is being done, some of that computation or some of that transcription and everything is being done on the actual phone itself, as opposed to in the old days, we had to always have it go back and forth, over the internet. And I haven't like experimented or frankly, I haven't like found that much of a difference because it was already going pretty fast. But there have been some things where I have gone on and transcribed something for quite a while, and it's been great. It's been fantastic. Yeah. So I'm just glad to see it continue to expand.
And there's a nice security aspect of that too. I like the fact that when I'm saying something, it's being transcribed right there on my device. Right. It's not going up to a server. I mean, not that I don't trust Apple, but you just never know. I mean, something, whether it's intentional or accidentally, if your words are up there on a server, I just prefer to keep things local. So that's nice. So we had the 10-year series.
Yes, that was the happy side.
That was the happy side. The bittersweet side,
now we have a bittersweet, of course. Yeah, the bittersweet side.
10 years ago that Steve Jobs passed away, who, I mean, it was not that long ago. You and I, Brett, were talking about what a fantastic job Tim Cook has done over the last 10 years. But you can't help but wonder what would be different if Steve were still around. He was such a, I mean, there's so many products that he introduced. And just the way that he introduced things, there was no marketer like Steve Jobs, right? And I really get the sense from the accounts that I've read that he was really good at focus. He would come in and say, you can't do a million things because you just got to focus on these are the things that we're going to do and just them, and then we're going to be the best at those. And I really feel like he saved Apple from bankruptcy in the 1990s. It's I don't think we would have Apple today if it wasn't for Steve Jobs coming back to the company.
Absolutely. I was just listening to something that they were talking exactly about that, Jeff. Like when he came back to Apple, they had dozens and dozens and dozens of products because the idea is like, well, you got to get bigger and better and, have more, et cetera. But he narrowed it down. I think it was like 4 categories, right? Consumer and the business. And, obviously today we could probably, Apple continues to expand a little bit more now with different items, but we all know it as the iPhone, obviously, and, the iPad and of course, Mac computers. Anyway, it is just neat to see it. Somebody was just emphasizing that exact point, Jeff, that Steve Jobs kind of focused it down, and he was, I guess I would like to think today we can look back and say what an amazing focus he had, but I would also like to think he's human, and that had to be just absolutely terrifying. Maybe not. Like, I didn't know the man, but I'm just thinking, you're leading this company that you began, and now you're kind of whittling things down, and you're going against pretty much the grain of everything that people say. But, hey, you got to throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. And Steve Jobs was just brave enough to do that. And, maybe just stubborn enough to keep going on it. I mean, I just kind of try to put a human aspect on him sometimes on that. But, it just cannot be argued enough that he was a pretty amazing individual.
Yeah. I'll share 2 quick Steve Jobs stories. Have you ever seen Steve Jobs in person?
I have not.
Okay. I had 2 opportunities to do so. So I've got 2 little stories. I want to hear it. So one of them, back in July of 2020. So you got to go back in time over 2 decades.
Oh my.
Okay. The company that makes Macworld magazine used to have
2020? Was it 2020?
I'm sorry, 2000. I said that. Thank you for correcting me.
2000. Okay.
July of 2000.
Good.
So the company that makes Macworld magazine used to have conferences called the Macworld Conference, and they used to have at least 2 of them, one in San Francisco and one in New York, and then they just had the ones in San Francisco, and then they went away completely. But back in 2000, they still had one in New York City in July. So I was in New York that summer, and I went to it, and so I attended the convention, and this was the keynote address that Steve Jobs gave, where they introduced the Mac Cube. Do you remember that one, the G4 Cube? It's one that later was, it would become notorious because it would develop cracks in the side of it and stuff like that, and so it was not a successful product. But we didn't know any of that the day that it was introduced. When it was introduced, it was this Mac that appeared to basically float because it had this clear square case around it, and it looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. So to watch Steve Jobs give the introduction of that was just it's pictures of it there. It was just spellbinding. I mean, he was a master showman, and you can tell that he loved this product because he was, when something, worked well but looked good, he just loved it. This was also the convention where that computer came with a brand new mouse that was completely clear.
Right.
And
I remember that
everybody in the audience, he said, look under your chair, and there's the little card that you can get a free one of those mice. So all of us that were there, in faat, I still have my clear mice. I should have brought it in today.
Oh, that's so cool.
But my point is, it was fun. He was just such a master storyteller, and, you would get caught up. People sometimes call it the reality distortion field because you get so caught up in it. But, watching him introduce a product like that. Now, his best product introduction ever, of course, was the iPhone in 2007,
Agreed.
which I think that's the best introduction that anyone's ever done of any product. It was a master, and I still go back and look at it from time to time. But this introduction was good. So that was the one little brush I had with him, just seeing him in the audience. And then the other one was many years later in 2006. Someone I know was working at Apple, and so I had an opportunity to go meet them for lunch in Cafe Max, which is the restaurant that the employees can go to.
Yes,
there you go. So fun too.
So fun.
And so we were sitting there having lunch, and just 2 tables over for us, Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive are sitting there talking to each other.
No.
Who, and I had a link to the article that Johnny Ive wrote in the Wall Street Journal,
so nice,
talking about why he misses Steve so much. But my understanding is that they were best friends. They had lunch together every day, basically, in Cafe Max, and of course, all the Apple employees would see them all the time there. And so at the time, I was sort of teasing my friend, and we should go over and say hi. He's like, no, don't do that. But what I did do is I took a picture of my friend Mark. And now this is 2006. So this is they were probably planning the iPhone at that time, but it wasn't out yet. I was still using a Trio 650, one of those little palm phones. So the quality of the camera is just crappy. It's horrible. But so I took a picture of my friend, and it just so happens that behind him, Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive were just sitting there, because Steve Jobs will sometimes always be in the background of a picture when you don't, I wasn't taking a picture of him, of course, but so those were the 2 times I saw him. But I was thinking about them having lunch there, because Johnny, of course, was the person responsible for the design at Apple, and the idea that the CEO of the company was every day having lunch with the person that was coming up with the new designs, that just shows that Steve was he was incredibly focused on design. He has this great line. He has so many great lines. We could sit here and quote Steve Jobs quotes all day, but one of them is that design is not how it looks, it's how it works. And it's the idea that it's not just that something looks good, it has to look good for a reason. It's not enough to just look good. Anyway, we could talk forever about Steve Jobs, but we're lucky that he was able to do what he did at Apple and create the company that it is today, and so many products that he introduced, from the Mac to the iPhone to the iPad, the iMac that saved the company in the 90s, and so many other fantastic products. So
I've used up your gracious free link here to the Johnny Ive remembrance here, but it's a great article, and it has actually a picture of Johnny Ive and Steve Jobs sitting. I don't know if it was the Max Cafe or not, but in there. But this was such a nice, poignant little memory. I mean, I just love that apparently Johnny Ive and maybe Tim Cook and some others were in the room as Steve Jobs was passing away.
Yeah, that's
and just
a great
after
story.
They went out into the garden and just sat there, and anyway, just a very nice. And then lastly, at your video, which you always have a fun video. Well, this one isn't so fun,
but
it's
is a great
really
one.
Neat. Yeah. So I'll play it here. This is what Apple posted, I think, on Apple.com, right? It took over.
Yeah, and Tim Cook tweeted it, and it's on YouTube now, so you can watch it. It's a nice video to watch, because all of the narration is done by Steve Jobs himself. They're just taking different audio clips over the years, and they show pictures that range from his earliest days at Apple, him and Steve Wozniak with the original Apple II computer, all the way through
that video. And thanks for the link to the tribute from Johnny Ive too. That was definitely well worth reading. So another link that you have. You and I have been talking about the iPhone 13 for a while. You got your iPhone 13 and you seem to really like it, but I'm leaving off the Pro version of that, right? You and I still have the 12. Mine's an iPhone 12 Pro. You got the iPhone 13 Pro. But I love this in here. You linked to a story from Jason Snell at 6 Colors where he's like, I actually like the mini or the iPhone 13 regular. And I just wanted to throw it in because I'm going to guess most of our listeners are probably on the Pro side. Most professionals that I know are just going to go ahead and pay the extra few $100s and get the Pro model because, it's bigger and better and more Pro, I guess. But Jason really did a good job in this article of just saying, the iPhone 13 may be good enough. And he even likes the mini. And I know that I've talked to some people that have tried the mini. That's the very small one. In fact, I'll bring it up here so we can compare the size. But some people like the mini just because it fits very well. Or, I've even talked to some ladies that like it because it fits into their purse better or something along those lines. But, I just wanted to make the point, and I thought it would be good. You and I talk about the Pro models a lot, and for good reason. But the mini or the iPhone regular might be perfectly fine for somebody that wants to get it. Plus, you're going to save money, and that was his point here in the article from Jason.
Jason
Snell.
had all 4 models because Apple gave him review units, so he was literally able to compare the 13 Mini, the 13, the 13 Pro, and the 13 Pro Max. So I mean, this is somebody who had a chance to try them all. And although the Pro has those few features that are better, like that third camera and some better stuff and ProMotion, the core of the iPhone is the same among all 4 of them. And the 13 mini size, it's interesting because it wasn't that many years ago that we were using iPhones the size of the iPhone 13 or even smaller and thought nothing of it. I mean, I remember when I used to use that's what the iPhones were, that we talked about the 4S, for example. The 4S was even smaller than this 13 mini. And, I remember over time when companies like Samsung came out with the big phones when they first started to hit the market, and I was like, oh, that thing is just too big for me.
We were poo-pooing those.
But of course now, I'm very comfortable with the 13. So I understand the allure of the 13 mini because it's so small. You can so easily hold it in your hand. I do think I'm happier with the current size that I have, but I totally understand someone saying that this small size. And what's nice is that last year, the iPhone 12 mini, the battery life was not great. It really had trouble getting through a full day. But this one, because it's got the extra battery life to it, you can get through the full day. That was the biggest complaint. Now, there are rumors out there that Apple hasn't been selling as many mini models as the other ones.
Jason talks about that.
Jason says this may be the last year that that Apple sells a mini. The theory is that in the future they're going to have 2 low-end models. One will be the iPhone, and one will be like a big version of the model. So it won't be like the Pro Max model. It'll be a non-Pro Max. We'll see if that rumor comes to play. So the bottom line is, if a mini size appeals to you, this might be a good year to get it because you could hold on to it for a few years, and it may be the last mini for a while. Who knows? But it's definitely something to consider.
It'll become a collector's edition for sure if it goes away. And quickly, just on that, you made a quick mention of it. My brain was starting to hurt reading this article from AnandTech that you linked to. But it just undergirds the point you just made, that it's the A15 chip, again, like you said, the guts of all of the iPhones, the Pro and the Pro Max and the Mini and the regular, or the guts are all the same. It really has to do with the, I guess, the size of the battery, number one, but it also has to do with the camera maybe more than anything else. But even with the smaller battery, because Apple, and again, we go back to this all the time, because Apple controls both the hardware and most of the software on these devices, they are able to tweak and retweak and tweak all of the internal functionings so that they can get the most out of that battery. In other words, they can shut things off, without, when we aren't necessarily needing them, and it's just so incredibly efficient. So I'm glad that you linked to that too.
And they can make
don't read this article. Don't read this article if you don't understand it. But
AnandTech is it's a great website for people that are far smarter than I am when it comes to chips and stuff. But the bottom line of this article, which is the part that I can understand, is every year Apple has a decision when it has more powerful processors, and they always get more powerful. Do you want to take advantage of that to get like the fastest speed possible? Do you want the sports car? Well, sometimes yes, you want it to be fast as possible. But this year, Apple has increased the speed, but they've really used that additional power to increase the efficiency, to use less power to get the same work done. Which again, that along with the slightly larger battery is why you're seeing such incredible battery improvements. I mean, back to that iPhone 13 mini, you wouldn't be able to have an all-day 13 mini without, them tweaking the A15 chip this way. And I think that's smart because I think if you ask most people, is your iPhone too slow? Unless you have it, if you have a new one, people are not going to say that. But does your iPhone, could it use more battery life? They'll be like, oh yeah, everybody's in favor of more battery life. So Apple made the right decision.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Okay. I just wanted to kind of give that public service announcement. Like, you and I are always going to probably want to go with the Pro because we're a little interested and nerdy on that aspect. But there could be a healthy collection of folks out there where the iPhone regular or the iPhone mini could actually be great as well. So the next thing, I saw this, and I haven't had a chance to play with this just a whole lot. Maybe you have, Jeff.
I have.
That the AirPods Pro came out with what did they call it, a firmware update? I can't remember exactly.
It is a firmware update, yes.
And it does it automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. But you link to our friend John Voorhees over on Mac Stories, and he's talking about this. In that new firmware update, the AirPods Pro or the AirPods Max, right? Not the older AirPods, but these are the AirPods Pro, that now you can almost, it's improved the Find My support. So it's almost like an AirTag, but not quite, right?
Very similar, very similar. With an AirTag, when you're trying to find a lost item, your phone, when you use the Find My app, can actually, you know, show you like where in your house is it. It'll actually give you an arrow.
Right.
Go left, go right. This doesn't, it's not quite that precise because it doesn't have the chip in it that allows you to do that. But by just using Bluetooth and how strong or how weak the signal is, you can say, you know, I don't know where, and I tried it, and it wasn't even a test because I literally forgot where my AirPods were. I thought that they were in my bedroom, and I was showing the feature to my son. I'm like, well, as you can see, the closer we walk towards the bedroom, it's going to say, you know, you're getting closer, but it didn't. It said, as we're walking towards my bedroom, it's like, you're getting farther away. And I'm like, wait a minute. Oh. And so I started following it, and sure enough, my phone directed me to my study. And that's like, oh, it's over here. And then sure enough, they were just right there on the table. So I'm like, okay, I guess the feature does work. So it's more of the, you know, you have to try and, you know, you're sort of dancing around, you know, if I go this way, I'm getting hotter, I'm getting getting colder.
Yeah, that's the way I like to think of it.
Yeah, but that's but it does work. So I can vouch that it absolutely does work. And, you know, the AirPod Pros are so small that we sometimes do forget where they are. You know, what room is it in?
Right.
Is it over here? Is it over there? So this is, you know, it's a nice little add-on to get this extra feature for free is pretty good. So if you have an AirPod that has noise cancellation, so it's the AirPods Pro,
that's right,
or it's the AirPod Pro Max, which is the one that goes over your
over the ear, right?
If you've got one with noise cancellation, you now get this feature as a new feature for free, and it's nice.
Now, just real quick, Jeff, we did have the ability to do Find My before, right? But this just adds like when you even get closer, right? I mean, it just
so here's the difference. And if you have a current AirPods, not the Pro, just the regular, when you do Find My, what it tells you is, let me tell you where your AirPods were the last time they were connected to your iPhone. This happened to me all the time. I would have them here in my office and I forget them on my desk. And so when I go home, they're like, well, I don't know where they are now, but I can tell you at 2:00 this afternoon, they were connected to your iPhone in your office. I'm like, okay, well, that's where they must be. But it doesn't know what's happened to them in the last 6 hours. You know, hopefully they're still there and somebody hasn't walked in and picked them up. But this feature is actually, where is it right now? Assuming that you're, you know, relatively close, you know, in the same house or something like that. So it's better.
That's helpful. Okay, excellent, very good. And to do the firmware update, I don't even think I knew that it was happening. Right, once those AirPods Pro connect with your phone, I think it just does the auto magic in the back end. Yeah,
the good news and the bad news is you can't do it. So when you want it to happen, you could just sit there and stare at it, and you can't make it happen. But sometime on its own, you know, if you really want to force it, the best, and hopefully it's happened for folks that have it already, but if you plug in your AirPods Pro, so that, you know, put the lightning charger on the bottom in the case, and then you flip it open, leave the AirPods in there, but flip it open, and then put your iPhone close to it, so that they'll make a connection. There's a good chance you give them about an hour and it will happen. That's my advice. Really hard. But you cannot flip a switch and say, do it now, like you can when you update your iPhone. You just have to keep your fingers crossed that it happens, but it will eventually happen.
I will tell you quickly, I think that it did it for me this morning when I was looking at this morning at the story, because when I looked at the Find My before I had opened my case, it told me your AirPods I was at a Costco yesterday. So it was like 15 minutes away. And I'm like, no, they're sitting right there on my desk. But then I opened up the case and I paired it with my phone. And literally the next time I went in to Find My app, it did exactly what this
now it has the new feature. Yeah.
So it was that easy. So like you said, that's an excellent way to tell people, Jeff, is just open it up and connect it and just hope really, really hard that that it'll do it. And eventually it will. At some point it will, if you connect to it a lot. Okay, so a couple of bonuses. First of all, you had a great article this week as well about getting the new Apple Watch Series 7 if you wanna. And maybe if you are listening to this today, you may be already too late, right?
Yeah.
Like,
they went on sale
this morning?
Yeah, they went on sale at 5:00 Pacific time. So that was, I'm in the central time zone. So it was 7:00 in my time zone. So I was using my app and I did order one. I will tell you that I was really hoping to be one of the first to order it and to get it a week from today, right? Because that's when they go on sale. But the earliest that mine could be delivered is early November. And I think the reason for that, I haven't had a chance to research this, but I get the stainless steel version because I've always preferred that one. It's just sort of shinier. Nicer.
Right.
And I could not figure out a way to get the stainless steel version next week. It might be that Apple's taking a little bit longer with that model. If I wanted the aluminum version, the lower priced one, I could get that one in a week. But I really didn't want the aluminum. I've always had the stainless steel model. So we'll see. So it may be, I mentioned in my post yesterday that one way to get an Apple product as soon as it ships is to pre-order it immediately. We're now past that time zone. The other way to do it is to wait for the day that they become available in the store, which is a week from today on the 15th. And if you use like the Apple Store app to say, I want to order one for pickup in an actual store, then you can often get one the day of. So I don't know if they'll have the stainless steel models a week from today. And if they do in my local Apple store, maybe I'll just order another one and pick that one up and then cancel my first order. Or maybe Apple's not going to have the stainless steel models. I mean, I'm sure within the next day or two, I'll see some article posted just, describing which models are available on the first day. But I'm very excited to get it because the Apple Watch that I'm using now, my Series 5, the battery life is not as good as it used to be. And I'm ready for the bigger screen and new and better battery life. And I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm very tempted. I have a 5 as well. I didn't upgrade to the 6 because I didn't feel like it was quite enough. And
you don't need to upgrade an Apple Watch every year. No.
Exactly. And in fact, I was just listening to someone else. They were talking about the fact that, like they make new microwaves every year, right? But you don't need to upgrade your microwave every year. So, you may not need to. Again, it's just for folks like us. Like I want, it is just like a hair, literally like a hair larger, right? It's a 45 millimeter as opposed to the older ones or the 5. I think it was 44. Is that right?
Right.
So it is just a tiny bit bigger, tiny bit. Although all of your bands will still work, if I'm not mistaken, correct? I mean, that was the biggest question I think that everybody had. It's like, if this is a bigger screen on the Apple Series 7, are my old bands going to work? That's what I really want to know.
Yeah.
And yes, they will.
Yes.
And it's just amazing quickly. So today, the Apple Watch Series 7 is available. Apple still has the Apple Watch SE, which is much less expensive, of course, but not quite as functional. And for some reason that I don't think anybody in the universe can understand, Apple is still selling the Apple Watch Series 3. Yeah. Although it's great affordability. That's what I got for my daughter. So maybe I do understand. Like, it is an entry level and she loves it. Everybody has an Apple Watch. They may not have quite all of the amazing features from, 5, 6, and 7, but it's pretty much perfect for what you need.
If you need a low one and one for your kid, maybe so. But, you and I were just talking, Brett, that, you don't need to get a new Apple Watch every year. I agree. But if you're like a professional adult and you're using an Apple Watch Series 3, my advice to you is it's time to upgrade. It's ironic that Apple is still selling the the Apple Watch that I already think is outdated. So again, it has uses. For some people, that's all they need, and that's fine. But if you're getting one and you really want to take advantage of it, I would take the jump to the new Series 7 if you're getting one for the first time.
Agreed. Last quick bonus. I love this because you and I have talked about hubs, USB-C hubs for the iPad, and you have reviewed the HyperDrive 6-in-1 USB hub for the iPad Pro before. We talked about this. I don't have a Pro with a USB-C connector yet, but I will definitely get one of these. Yeah. Other than the fact that is it Hyper or HyperDrive? The company is Hyper, I believe, right?
The company is Hyper. The product's the HyperDrive,
They just announced a brand new version of this hub, and you linked to a story on 9to5 Mac about this, that it's pretty much has, I think, most of the same connectors, right?
Right.
Except that it has like media buttons on it, which I got to tell you, I love. I think this is great because if I'm sitting there working, I might have headphones plugged into my iPad, and I hate to like switch back to my app to, for Spotify or Apple Music, whatever it is. And I know sometimes I can use buttons depending on, what I'm using, but I think this is great that it has the media buttons on here.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how useful they are. But I mean, they had the space on the top of it. I love the fact that Hyper sees that it's got a product it's a great product. It really is. I've been recommending it for a long time, and now there's an even better version of it. So that's great. I mean, I love the fact they're continuing to develop it and think of creative new ideas and see what sticks. But I hope that a product like this, that's just because so many USB hubs that work with like an iPad have a cord that extends out from that. And then you got a cord and it's on the side and you move your iPad and it's flipping around, and that's aggravating. It's so nice to have something that just attaches flush right to the side. This is a nice product. So again, I haven't tried this one because they've just announced it. And I don't know. And I don't even think it's that much more expensive. I think you only pay like an extra $10 to get the current version with the buttons on the top. So if I was buying one today, why not spend an extra $10 just in case the buttons are useful? Sure.
Well, Hyper, if you're listening to us, I think you should send one to Jeff. my friend Jeff, so that he can look at it and play with it and see how great it's going to be. I am actually very impressed with this company. They're coming out with some really good stuff, and so we'll continue to follow them for sure. Okay, in the know. How about a couple of tips? I have been working on a big major update to my it's a course that I released, Jeff, called I Practice on an iPad.
Oh yeah, I watched the first version of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And I have been updating it because there have been so many changes over the last few years, especially now, a couple of new things in iPadOS. And that is the Files app, which, a lot of us that have been using the iPad for a long time. First of all, at the beginning, we could not get access to local files, right? We had to use maybe Dropbox or Box, and that was a separate app. And we had to use the open in command and copy files back and forth. And it was a little bit horrendous, to be honest with you. But then Apple announced iCloud Drive, I think with iOS 8, right? Where they were trying to go a little bit easier to have like a file management kind of a construct, but it didn't work. It wasn't good. And then in iOS 11, they introduced the Files app, which has continued to get better and better. It is almost like a one-stop shop for organizing all of your files from all different places. You can get access to the local files on your iPad, like almost to the iPad hard drive, if you will. You can get access to iCloud Drive, but you can also access Dropbox and Box and OneDrive and all the others. And what I love about the Files app, because I still use the individual apps as well, but the Files app allows me to copy and move files from between different services. Anyway, there's a lot you can do. So one of the things that was improved with iPadOS and in iOS 15 as well on the iPhone, but typically I'm using the Files app on the iPad. One of the things that I liked is you can go in and see different views of your files. There's a list view of your files. There's an icon or a thumbnail view. It looks like a little grid, right? Like little thumbnail pictures there. Then on the iPad, there is a column view. That's iPad only. But now with iPadOS 15, they added a group by option. And you can simply just go there by tapping on the little bullet list, or you can tap on the icon list, and it brings it down. And at the very bottom of that list, it says group by. And you can group by default, it goes group by kind. So then it just like all the pictures are in, together. All of the PDF files are together. All the Word docs are together. You can group by date, I believe. Yeah. And you can group by size. I don't really use those that much. Sometimes on the date that I do. You could always sort your files by the kind, but I just like this little visual cue with the group by option on there. So that was my tip. If you've upgraded, especially on the iPadOS, this works on the iPhone as well, but on the iPadOS 15, you can now group your files by, and then you can toggle that on and off. You can just simply go there and toggle the checkmark on there.
This is cool, Brett. I did not know about this feature. I've been trying it out as you're describing it, and it's really nice. Yeah, and I agree. Of the group by functions, the one that looks the most useful is the group by kind. It's got like all my folders together, all my PDF documents together, all of that's really nice. Thank you. I did not know about that.
I'm glad.
Very cool.
It's a small one, but I got to tell you, I've just been experimenting a little bit more with the Files app. It's not the best. I like the Documents app from Readle, probably a little bit better, and I still use the individual Dropbox app and the Box app. So it seems to get a little confusing and bulky, but the Files app is continuing to get a little bit better, and this is one of the improvements they made with iPadOS. So that's group by. So that's my tip.
Cool. So here's my tip. If you're getting a new iPhone right now or sometime soon, now that we have the new iPhones out, you're going to be, this is a time to make sure you've got all your apps, and, it's a good time to sort of think about your overall iPhone, what can you do with it? But one thing that you should definitely do, if you haven't done it before, is set up your medical ID. And what this is, and I'll tell you about how you do it. What it is if somebody picks up, let's just say something horrible happens to you. You fall down and hit your head on the side of the road, and your iPhone is in your pocket. Somebody could look at your iPhone, and even though they can't get into it because your iPhone's locked, of course, there's a little button that they can press to see your medical ID, and they can see whatever information that you put in there. And I will tell you, every ambulance driver in the United States, probably the world, they know about this. They know about it. So it's much like the idea that somebody could look at in your wallet and they can find out your name and address. But this is more than that, because you can put things in there like, here are medications that I take, so that if they're about to give you something else, they would know, oh, well, no, this is contraindicated because you already take X, so I should not give you Y. I should instead give you Z. It's allergies. You can put allergies in there. You can put, your height and weight and stuff like that. You can also put emergency contacts in there so that, something happens to me, someone picks up my phone, they can see, like I have mine set that my wife and my dad are the two emergency contacts,
Yep.
and you can choose what number you put for them. And I believe that somebody, can actually use your phone to just tap that, and they could call and say, there's somebody on the side of the road here, and you're listed as the emergency contact. Do you want to come do something about this?
Right.
So it's a nice feature. And so the way that you do it is you use the Health app, and we'll have a link in today's show notes. There's a page on the Apple website that shows you how to do it. But if you haven't done it before, you should definitely set it up. And if you have done it before, it's probably something that you set up once and forgot about it. This might be a good time to go double check. Do you still have the right emergency contacts? Do you want to update somebody's number that's an emergency contact? This is something that you want to look at it every once in a while. Hopefully none of us will ever need this, but if something happens, you want to be safe. So it's a nice feature, and it's something that I recommend.
I'm so glad it took me a while to set this up. Like I had known about it because I think it's been around for several years, but again, this is just another fantastic option that Apple gives you, but it's so important, Jeff. Like you said, you don't think about it until you need it, and then it might be too late. The thing that I like about it is we didn't mention is the blood type on there as well. Like I don't even know my blood type, but I think some test that I recently got over the last year or so, I finally had it so I can put it in there because that could be important, right? Like you said, emergency personnel know that it's there, and if they gotta give you some blood, like they can't until they know your blood type, and you may not be conscious to be able to tell them or so. I'm so glad you do this. This is something everybody should set up because, again, first responders, emergency personnel, they know that this is available, and this is one of the first things they're going to start looking for. So great.
Right.
Yeah, we'll have a link to set it up, and that's the Health app. It comes for free already on the iPhone. Like you don't even have to go download anything. You already have the Health app there, and it's used for several other things, but this is one thing you absolutely should set up in there for sure. Excellent stuff. All right, great. Well, I think that is going to wrap it up. Boy, this went a little bit longer than I thought, but thanks, Jeff, as always, for joining me. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye, Brett.